Toby Faber. I'm a Deputy Secretary at Penn DOT for multimodal transportation. So this whole process of looking at consolidation of transit agencies has been out here for a long time. We're trying to bring it to a conclusion one way or the other, or maybe a pathway for some people to move forward for consolidation and others to not do it. It's fine. The proposal is that administration would be combined together under a regional authority, and that those individual authorities like Lebanon, like Capillary Transit, like Rapid Transit New York would fall under that regional authority from a structure point of view. So there wouldn't be administrative employees in the individual authorities. The administrative employees would all come under the regional authority. Each one of these authorities has their own boards, and each authority has a certain number of board members, and they're generally appointed by the local elected officials. So I'm sure that's the county, and there's a few other, maybe a couple other smaller municipalities that appoint board members here. Regional level, that structure would stay in place for the purpose of your local authority and local service decision making. So the regional administration would staff that authority, but and potentially do service analysis and would recommend if there's potential service changes, things like that. But that local authority board would still need to make decisions on service, would still have to approve a budget, and would still be responsible for signing off or approving labor contracts. At the regional authority level, then they would be applying for grants, doing the accounting, doing the fiscal analysis, the planning analysis, and the management. Strike a bit of a balance so that the local authority, there's still local control over service and local decision-making over service, and then the funding management and administrative management and compliance with federal rules and state rules and things like that would happen at a regional level. Board seats around the state are often established based upon funding contribution. We suggested that there be a tiered structure, so if you're contributing between $1 and $150,000, then you would get one board seat. If you're $150,000 and $1 to 300,000, it would be 2 board seats, and over 300,000 is 3 board seats. You would end up with 17 board seats, 2 of which are ex officio board seats for Franklin and Perry County. If Franklin and Perry County are included, neither one of them contribute local match, but are independent shared ride counties. So since this report has come out, Franklin County is advancing discussions with Rapid Transit to merge their shared ride department with Rapid Transit. And if Berks is out and if Lancaster is out, that would reduce that number by 5. So you'd be down to 12, with 2 of them being ex officio. You'd really have 10 voting members making decisions. So cumulative across the whole region, it's about $12 million. For Lebanon County specifically, it's just over $500,000. But by consolidating, there's one little nuance to this local match savings, and that's each year, because all the systems in this region are under the 15% local match requirement, so they contribute less than 15%. Your local match is required to increase by 5% over the previous year until you get to 15%.
Because of Act 89.
Because of Act 89. Actually, it was built into Act 44, but continued in Act 89. During that 5-year period when local match goes to 0, we also don't accrue that 5% increase. And so you'll see that even though the local match starts again in year 6, it would start for Lebanon at $92,458 in year 6, and then would begin to grow. That additional compounded growth from that middle 5 years you don't get applied, and so it actually, your savings over 10 years is another $200,000. Federal funding goes to the urbanized area and would continue to go to the urbanized area and has to be dealt with at the MPO level. So it would not allow federal money generated from the Lebanon area to be spent in the Harrisburg area or the York area or anything like that. It protects the federal funds. That already exists. State and federal funding would still be spent in the county. It would be managed at the regional authority level, but it would still be spent and covered in the budget for the county.
But it couldn't be used for another county.
It could only be utilized in the geographic area.
By which it was generated.
Is that right?
Yes.
Toby, respectfully, that sounds really good.
Yep.
I have been in transportation meetings over the years where they have said that the urbanized areas will be coming together and we will lose our status eventually as an urbanized area and we will become part of a larger
Yes.
MPO area.
On the federal level, yes.
Yes, and so when that happens, then our 5% will not be 5% of our share, but 5% of the larger urbanized area share.
No. So let me separate that issue for you. When if urbanized areas merge together, that affects federal funding. It doesn't affect state funding. So state funding is calculated based upon transit statistics in Lebanon County. So that has nothing to do with urbanized areas merging together or not merging together. State funding isn't tied to that.
Is that part of the agreement that is signed?
Yes. But at the federal level, when urbanized areas merge together, then all the statistics roll together to generate funding for that larger urbanized area. However, if there's multiple federal recipients, then those multiple federal recipients use the formula of the statistics that went into the federal formula to break that funding out. And to make that work, they all have to send letters, agree on the funding split, and then send letters to the FTA, and the FTA has to sign off on that before they'll commit the money. That's how the process works today. I'm involved in several of those splits today because Penn DOT gets money in the Philadelphia urbanized area, we get money in the Lancaster urbanized area, and we get money in the Harrisburg urbanized area for the Keystone train service that runs.
And the 5% is based on state numbers or federal numbers?
State.
Lancaster, Berks, and Dauphin get 3 votes, and we get 1 vote. Is there any way that bigger counties could vote that we no longer will have a hub here in Lebanon County, meaning a physical location?
Not in this structure. Well, in this case, Cumberland County would only get 2 votes, and not 4. But irregardless, not in this structure, because under this structure, you would still have a local authority, and service decisions would have to be made locally, both locally and regionally. So the regional board wouldn't have the authority to override the local board, and that would be built into the charter.
You emphasize only operations and maintenance staff members as employees of the individual authorities. Something as simple as who at the individual authority reports to the regional authority. It's certainly not going to be the board. Who does that?
Yeah. So I think from the way the structure is proposed, the administrative organization, the executive director of the new authority, if there's a regional manager established under the new authority to cover Lebanon, or however they would do it, that's where the employees are going to report administratively. But in terms of the labor contract would continue to be owned locally.
I don't understand that. Who calls the executive director of the regional authority from the local authority when there is a serious problem or challenge?
So a regional operations manager who would be part of the administrative or broader administrative organization.
And did the report take into account the costs of that individual for all
Yes.
these little authorities?
Yes.
So you feel as though that's very well covered
Yes.
in the financial analysis?
Yes. I mean, I'd be glad to sit down. I didn't bring the detailed phase 2 study along, but the detailed phase 2 study goes through all of the administrative employees and management employees for each one of the existing organizations, and then shows where the reductions would be, not by system, but shows where the reductions could take place. So if you have 6 CFOs, you don't need 6 CFOs anymore. You still need an appropriate size accounting department, you can find savings there. There's savings in executive directors, there's savings in some of that stuff. So it doesn't mean that there isn't appropriate management responsibility though.
Well, following up on that, I suspect that the regional authority will establish its own central communication system to include its own radio towers, because you provided 1.6 million, I think, in the capital budget to do just that. So, right now, we're making, as an authority, we're making a substantial payment to the county, over $60,000 a year.
I know, I approved it.
Okay, so that would go away. And if I were a commissioner, that would get my attention pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm not sure that goes away. In the case of Lebanon, the particular arrangement that you have here in Lebanon is very unique. Because it allows the Lebanon County to count an operational value of your radio system as local match to the authority. The way we've structured it, and it used to be that way, now we've structured it so there's actually payments going back and forth to make it cleaner. But it's legitimate because there's payments going back and forth. I mean, there wasn't anything not legitimate about before, but it's unique. I don't know that that goes away. Radio systems are still going to have to exist, and I don't think there's going to be a need or a desire for all of the radio systems in the whole region to have to come under one radio system to make operations work. And that, what was, a lot of that money that was being proposed was communications, broader communications, not necessarily radio systems. So it's phone systems, so everybody can be on the same phone system, everybody can be on the same IT systems for communication.
Well, explain to me how something as simple as a customer service is handled for the
Yeah, I will.
local authority.
Sure, I will. So in the case of consolidations that have already taken place, every individual system has to size their customer service department to handle the peak of your system, right? So it isn't just the low point of your system. You don't size it to the low point, then don't answer the phone when you hit peaks. You size your customer service department generally to manage peaks of your system. Systems where they have had consolidations already taken place, we've invested in telephone technology that allows those systems to share calls across their system. So you have a call center you have a call center in Cumberland County, you have a call center in York County. When the phone rings for a Cumberland County person, it rings across the whole system. If it's a Cumberland County call, it shows up on the computer as a Cumberland County call. If there's a Cumberland County person available, they pick up the phone and take it. If there isn't a Cumberland County phone, if it's overflow, somebody in York County picks it up, but the answer is Cumberland County. The consumer doesn't see the difference. And then they're able to answer the question. That takes training because there's local knowledge, there's local experience, so some of that comes with computer technology investment. So that's one of the reasons that the state's been pushing to move toward EcoLane, which is, in terms of shared ride, puts everybody on a common basis across the whole state, because forget about consolidation, but it's so we can share trips and communicate between systems where we weren't able to do it before. But having common IT technology allows people to be able to see those trips and understand. I know in places where it's already taken place that it's working.
There isn't a board meeting that I haven't attended where there's a number of general public people that just come in off the street and they get their senior citizen card or they get their whatever they're coming for. I have no idea. But where does that service occur?
Would still occur at Lebanon.
But we lost all the administrative help.
So in the case of a customer service center, you would still have a call center. You would still have to have customer service in each one of the locations. That doesn't go away.
This is the report. Now, the firewall that you developed for Lebanon Transit didn't include any inflation because what you're saying is, I guess, the local level of funding will remain constant. But 20 years down the road, I would expect it not to be at the level it is today.
Your funding that you get is driven off of a formula. State formula and federal formula. That doesn't change. There's no savings in service. If you cut a route here, you can spend it back over here. There isn't savings there. Do anything for me as a local elected official. Why would I agree to consolidate to have the money be able to go back into service Why wouldn't I want that back for my taxpayers? So we wrote it in, we got an incentive written into law that said you can get dollar for dollar reduction in savings in your local match contribution. So if then the local government who gets that savings back decides to continue giving it to the authority, then it's a bonus for the authority. At the end of the 5 years, the authority gets it anyway, because the local match has to begin to accrue again. Penn DOT is committed to provide technical assistance, financial assistance, if there's additional capital dollars needed, if there's operational investments needed. We've been willing to do that and have done that, where we've had consolidations. We've invested money. In shared ride, we paid for losses during that period of time. In fixed route, we've paid for phone systems and IT systems and software and computers and office furniture and things to help set the organization up, because the intent wasn't to have it come from the cost of the existing authority. It's to try to find ways to make things more efficient. There's other broader challenges in this region, and I don't even know if all of this should happen. I just don't know. So it's part of your decisions and your decisions to do that, because you got to decide what's right for the residents of this county and the riders here in this system. My main goal has been to try to work through and try to find common ground and see where we could provide a technical resource to help figure out a way through it. Old Act $3, those programs don't exist any longer, and we don't allow you to bank money in advance. It's state policy. From a capital point of view, since Act 89 passed, Penn DOT's capital program is, the financial part of is established. We're in better shape on buses than we've ever been. We're now able to continually fund state of good repair on buses to be able to replace things on a normalized basis.
You said moving forward for discussion. Is that what you meant? That this next step forward would be just for discussion purposes, and that sometime down the road we could say this isn't working?
So here's what I think. What I believe needs to happen next. I think people need to make a decision. Yes, we like this and we'd like to work toward consolidation or not. If there's a decision made by more than one organization to consolidate, and it makes sense, then we need to establish a time frame, a hard time frame to consolidate. If that's 12 months from now, if it's 6 months from now, whatever it is, have a goal for that consolidation to take place, and then we need to establish an action plan and a process and figure out who's going to be involved and what questions need to be answered and the details of making that happen. And ultimately, what has to happen is in the end, you establish a new municipal authority and maybe make changes to the old municipal authorities, and that requires votes, right? So until that final vote decision's made, you haven't done anything. Yeah. Then after you've established, if you established a new authority and you consolidated, 2 years from now, you decided that it wasn't working. You weren't happy with it, it didn't produce the savings, it wasn't whatever, but it really wasn't going well. And if you wanted to separate from it, what I was saying is the funding is with the Lebanon authority. So it's allocated there, and from the state's perspective, it could be separated back out and into those separate authorities, and it wouldn't be an issue.
As this board is put together, with one entity having, I think, 7 board members and Lebanon Transit having 1, how would we ever, in the building process of this, achieve any of the things that would be important to Lebanon Transit?
Well, so I guess a couple things. You can't make, so you have to decide what those components are in the charter to begin with. And so.
But wouldn't this same board be developing the charter?
No, the board doesn't exist until the charter is established, and then people appoint the board. So the charter would get established, or could get established. You could appoint Tom Cote to be the guy, or whatever, to be the guy to represent the county, to sort out the charter issues. And the county could say, look, if we don't get this, we're not on board. That's it. Okay. And then if that item doesn't occur, then you can make that decision. So in the case of service, protecting service is important, protecting facilities important, keeping local branding and local structure is important, and this would keep local branding. To the rider, they shouldn't see any difference in the service. It's gonna still be the same local drivers, generally the same people answering the phones, and you're gonna, the differences would be that administratively, you're not gonna need to do, each county isn't gonna need to submit a separate grant thing, you're not gonna sign separate grant agreements, you're not gonna have to do 7 different audits across the region. Administratively, all that duplication is gonna go away, and that's the stuff.
I, read through the material and I hear you say that we won't need local director, but then you referred to a local manager.
Yep.
So the savings then, some of the savings that's generated is between the salary level of a quote director and the salary level of a manager. Is that what I'm
Some of
getting?
that, if it's the same position, it could be, yes. There still is a net reduction in administrative positions. Between all the organizations across the region, there will be a net reduction in administrative positions, which is how you generate savings. We've suggested in the past that that reductions not be painful ones. That you don't turn off one system one day and turn on another system the next day and give a whole series of people pink slips. It's not a good idea. Largely, the way we've recommended it is to deal with placing employees in skills in the positions that are needed for the new authority, and then through attrition over time, as people naturally leave and change, you move people around in those positions until you get to the right size.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the elephant in the room then. Are you saying to me today that if we went this route, that Terry would have a job as long as she wanted a job or we wanted her to have a job?
Yeah. I would, if I were you and you were making that decision, and that's a concern of yours, I would make that a condition of the charter going into it.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm telling me that she's ready to be the regional executive director, I'd probably vote for it today.
Well, so let me just clarify the time frame. We set a time frame in a letter that I sent to you, just because I wanted to set a target date.
Yeah.
We did that because, like, it could go on forever and we'll never get there, so I wanted to try to get a date. I've heard from a few counties that have had some questions and raised a few issues and may need a little more time. I'm waiting, I got at least two more counties to talk to about it, and then I think we're gonna probably have to extend the time frame out a little more from where we're at. I don't know if it'll be middle of March or it may be a couple weeks. You'll probably see a communication from me here next week on it. In terms of like Terry and Terry's position, at least one of the counties have suggested that they don't want it to be a foregone conclusion who becomes the next executive director, or the executive director of the regional authority, if there was a decision made. And so they think that as part of the charter building process, there needs to be a job description written for the executive director of the regional authority. There needs to be a decision made on the administrative org chart and decide how that structure is going to be established. And then there needs to be an interview panel established to interview potential candidates and select somebody to be that new executive director, so that no one person is automatically it. Because I think there was concern, at least by one county, that it may be a foregone conclusion in some people's minds as to who might be the next executive director.
I've heard that.
You said that if we were in this 2 years and it looked like it wasn't working for us, we could back out.
Yeah.
Now, my concern is the $92,458. Would we pick up at that point? We are not penalized the 2 years that we participated. We would pick up at that point and then move forward.
Yes, ma'am.
And that would be in writing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.